Okay, wow. This has been, I don't know about for you all, but this has been like a super strong day for me. Like every one of these talks, everybody's just blowing my mind in different ways. I'm full up to the brim, but I still have room for this gentleman here. Very excited about Brendan Dawes. Okay, so he is a UK-based artist using generative systems involving data, machine learning, and code. So very topical stuff here. Check this out. This is quite the CV. He is a Lumen Prize and Aesthetica Art Prize alumni. His work has been featured in many exhibitions across the world, including Big Bang Data in 13 cities, 3 MoMA shows in New York, Brighton Digital Festival, Arts Futura, and ZKM. His Cinema Redux, or Redo, Redux is how I'm going to pronounce it, work became part of the MoMA Permanent Collection in 2008. That is something else. Please welcome Brendan Dawes. Have fun, man.
Toronto, really lovely to be. It's lovely to see a packed room. Thank you. I hope you're not going to be disappointed and go, why did I turn up for that guy? I had my first poutine experience earlier today. And I come from the north, so chips and gravy is like built into my DNA. And chips and gravy and cheese, yes. Everything's better with cheese, right? So let me get my little clicker here. So I want to talk about this, my manifesto for myself. Over many years, I've done lots of different pieces of work, from installations to weird electronic objects, to print pieces, to designing strange interfaces, to running a design agency, where now I'm on my own, and if you've ever worked with me, you'll know why that is. And over the course of making this work, I started to write down over many years little design thoughts or creative approaches in a little notebook. There was not some grandiose notebook. It was like a field notes-esque notebook with really bad design on it. And, it was just kind of scrappy, and I wanted it to be scrappy. And I would take this notebook and write things in it that, by the way, before I get into it, I hate these, like, Instagram, do what you love. It's like, fuck off. It's like, I love to, make creative work, but some people have to clean places in order to put food on the table. So not everyone can have that privilege. So it's so simplistic a thing. So I hate all those Instagram things. So now I'm going to show you things that could be Instagram things. So I'd write these things down, right? And mainly because I don't have many friends. But comma, semicolon, full stop, well-designed objects are imbued with good punctuation, I think. Timings is what I'm essentially saying there. Or useful is no excuse for ugly. Do you remember when the whole Flash scene, a load of people got involved that seemed to all be about making ugly interfaces? And we were all like the cool Flash kids, and then they kind of ruined it. I was like, it's all about interface now. How rubbish. I would write these things down, and then eventually I thought, this might make a nice, let's put it into kind of manifesto. So I did this screen print, which was a limited edition run, and I think there's about 7 left available at that URL. So there's about 7 of these things left, and the little things that sometimes, it's called Manifesto for myself because I don't want to tell people what to do. Make your own stuff to be, and, I'm not going to tell you how to do things. I'm not that arrogant. So I called it Manifesto for myself. There are reminders for me to make creative work. When I'm feeling down, I might have a look at this thing. And it's got various things on here, and some of which I want to take you through today, using examples of some of my work and how some of these things manifest themselves outside of this written thing. Now, manifestos are nothing new. Most art movements and artists have had manifestos and continue to have manifestos, and they're just a good way to focus your mind, maybe, put down what you're about as an artist, as a creative, as a designer. I love this one from Grayson Perry when he was at art college. This is the Red Allen Manifesto. It's like, it couldn't be more English. And I love, there's so many really nice things. We dare to make the difficult first mark on the blank canvas of the future. Yes. I love that stuff. My favorite artwork is the next one I make, right? Because you're only as good as your last hit record, really. So I love this. You sign here, so you have to sign it. But then there's another manifesto, which is, I think, one of the most famous design manifestos, and it's from Toronto's own Bruce Mau, which is, I've always loved this one, and this goes on, there's a lot of them, but it's Bruce Mau's An Incomplete Manifesto for Growth, and I really love it. It's been around for years. You can find it on the internet, and I encourage everyone, if you've not seen it, go and have a look at it. It's free. Have a look. Take some things you will agree with, some things you won't, which is, that's fine. You don't have to agree with everything. So I'm going to take you through some of the things on my own manifesto. And we're going to, first of all, start with things that go wrong. So explore the scraps on the cutting room floor. So I'm going to show you now my process diagram. Now, this process diagram, I work with a university to fine-tune this diagram. It took many years. So when you see this next slide, it might take a little while to take it all in because it is quite complex. There you go. So it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've got to make this thing that's like a perfect circle. How do I do that? So this is, I think, every single person in this room, this is your creative process. You're welcome. So it's pretty much this, right? So you're trying to figure stuff out, and you're trying to get to this idea of perfection over here, which is this cruel, mythic lie. There is no such thing as perfection, really, because you only ever see errors in your own work, I think. So within that, though, you go through this process where you go through a lot of iterations, and sometimes you throw stuff away, which maybe you should have looked at again. And this happened in this very simple example. I was asked to do this data visualization. I've done a lot of data things in my work. And I was asked to do this thing for a shipping company. Now, I knew nothing about ships and stuff like that. So they said, we've got all this shipping data, and we want to map all the shipping routes from a certain amount of time. And I was like, okay. And we're going to give you the starting port and the destination as a lat long. I said, great, have you got the information between? And they went, no. I was like, okay. So I've got to figure out how it avoids land? And they said, yeah. So I was like, okay, give me a few months, yeah? So eventually I did it, and I did this thing, and this was for like there's like, if you're in the world of oil and shipping and stuff like that, they have this big annual conference, and this was shown. This was like an 8K 360 projection, the final thing. Well, this is like a cut down version for this format. So there's this is all from data, this is shipping routes, this is ships. And you'll see in a minute that these ships start to move any second now. And they move around the world, and this is all kind of, it was not real time, but it was all from real data. And it's like avoiding the land. So I was really pleased with all this kind of stuff. By the way, there is no map on here. The map is actually the ports of the world. Because we were going to should we do a map? And when we put the ports of the world on there, we did realize we didn't need a map. So, which is kind of mind-boggling how many ports there are in the world. So anyway, I'm not showing it to show this bit. Before I got to this, working out how to get the data to avoid the landmass, I did a stupid thing. I went, right, with my clients, I'm very transparent, and I send them works in progress, and if you've got great clients, they come along with you on the journey, and they have to have a lot of faith in you, and as long as you explain it, it's all cool, right? So I did this thing where it's like, I'm just going to draw a line from where the ship started to where it ended. And I did this thing, and then I sent it to them on Basecamp, and I said, look, this is obviously silly, because ships don't fly. I don't know if you've noticed, they don't fly. So I sent it to them. It's very silly, but, I'm trying to figure out that landmass stuff. If you'd just given me the data, it would have been a lot easier. But I'm trying to figure all that out. And they went, we've shown it to the client, and they absolutely love it. I was like, yeah, did you miss the bit, ships don't fly? Right? We don't care, they said. No one's ever shown us a data visualization that looks like that. Because it's not real. So I did a more simplified one, which you can't really see on this projector, but this became the invite for the whole event. And it was like, it isn't real. It's real in the starting and end points, but a ship can't do that shit. So, but the thing was, and it became this invite, and I think they printed it out as a poster and all kinds of things. And I nearly threw that away, or I nearly didn't show the client this work because it was stupid. It's like, why would I show them this? It's embarrassing, right? I want to show them where I've been clever and mapped out the land masses. But so look again at those scraps on the cutting room floor, because those can sometimes be where the beautiful X Factor type stuff lies. So I would encourage you all to always do that, and it's taught me. So I always try and look again at things. And the way, part of my process is scrappy. I play all the time with stuff, and I make stupid, simple things that do one thing. Sometimes not even one thing well, but they do one thing, right? So I might wake up and go, how do I wrap lines around a sphere? Or how do I drive a vehicle around my kitchen floor? Or how do I get more friends? And stuff like that. So, or make waves or whatever. And it's all done in, this was all a lot of processing, which is the software. A lot of you are into code in this room, but if you're not, processing.org is where you can start, and it's an amazing piece of software. So I would do lots of these kind of little experiments. Now, the power of these is not the things by themselves, it's when you combine them together to make other things. By themselves are like, whatever, but the power is in the combinations. And when you combine them, you can put work out there that hopefully deserves to exist. I would encourage everyone to do this. I speak to a lot of people and they say, I've got this project, but one day I'll put it out there when it's finished and perfect. I'm going well, that will never happen. Just put it out there and see what happens. And it might be not perfect to you, but people might see other things in it. So I did this project that I've shown many times at FITC. So I'm not really going to talk about this particular part of it. But I built this thing because at the time I was a bit disparaged with how human beings are treating each other on the internet. And this was many years ago, so this is pre-Trump, so pre-polarization. But I thought we have to remember that there's another person on the other side of that Twitter handle. So I built this thing called the happiness machine, and it was, you press the button, and it went out on the internet, and it created, it scoured all blogs and things like that, and it found anyone talking about being happy or had happiness in a sentence, and it printed you a receipt of happiness. And I've got a little video with terrible music, by the way, I apologize. So I did this little video, and it's all 3D printed, and I figured out the electronics myself, and so I put it out on the internet, and it kind of, caught fire. Not literally, or maybe it did. So people started to talk about it, and it was on the Wired blog, and it was on lots of blogs, and it was famous for a week, which on the internet is a very long time. So I did this thing called the happiness machine, and the cool thing is with it, it's the form factor of the receipts, because it's like a receipt, that you can hold in your hands. If it had printed on an A4 sheet of paper, that's a wholly different experience, right? That's basically a fax machine for those people who remember fax machines. But when you've got something small and you can hold it in your hands, you have a totally different relationship with it. So I created this thing, and it was in a few art galleries, and Mario Klingerman has a gallery in Munich, and we did a little show there. And I love this picture, right? Because this is why I make stuff. This is when we were setting the show up, and we put the happiness machine in the window, and we were starting to clip all these happiness receipts in the window. It was raining. The happiness receipts are in English. And these three lovely octogenarians pass, and they're there for like 10 minutes in the rain, reading and trying to figure out what is going on, right? But they're reading things because there's stories on here. I love this. This represents for me everything why I make the work I do. Because they're not going, no, not one of them here is going, do you think it uses Arduino to connect to the Wi-Fi? They're not saying that. They're looking at the stories and they're fascinated by it. They're not interested in the technology. The technology is an enabler, is a publishing system, is infrastructure. These are universal themes that connect universally. And so, when I was making this thing, I wasn't thinking of those people as the audience. I was thinking of the people like you, all the cool hip people, right? But these people came along, and I realized that, what we do is we're trying to tell stories across generations and create and use universal themes to do that. And I've made no money from this. This is a passion project. It's got me PR. And it also then, brings clients in, hopefully. So a few years later, and I think, it's a big thing for me to create these environments for others to play within, because then they surprise me. They do things that I didn't think this thing did. And they take it to other places, which I think is really important. So you create infrastructure, a playground for others to play within, and then they take it to other places. So this company called Airbnb, which you might have heard of, they got in touch a few years later. They'd seen this happiness machine. And they got in touch and said, Brendan, we're doing this installation at the Sundance Film Festival. It's all about neighborhood. Could we have like the happiness machine on display? So I'm like, I can smell money, right? So, because they were thinking, could we just have it like for free? I was like, no. Because you're Airbnb. So I said, look, yeah, we could do that. We could do that. But why don't we do something better? And why don't we make 12 printers that people can text message in stories about their neighborhood, and we collect them during this week of the Sundance Film Festival, and let's see if we can do that. And they were like, and by the way, it's going to cost this much. And they agreed. And so I set about to do this. I love learning new things all the time. And at the time, I was learning this amazing piece of software called Fusion 360. Learn how to, do a bit of industrial design to create these printers. And then I printed each one out myself on my printer at home. Each one took a day to print. And that's not, sometimes it goes wrong. Anyone who 3D prints knows that's what happens. And this is actually I haven't got like a huge studio. I don't have a team. So this is actually our dining room table covered with a cloth. And my wife's going, what are you doing? It's like, and all these printers are like printing stories, because I'm trying to stress test it. So I did that, and then I flew to Park City, is where Sundance Film Festival is. I hate the snow. I know I'm in Canada. I don't like cold, right? Park City is freezing cold. It's a ski resort. No one told me it was a ski resort. Sun, dance. Where's the sun? Where's the dancing? So It's a bloody ski resort. So, blame Robert Redford for this. So, anyway, so we do it, and it's installed. And now, being a cynical Englishman, which I am, I thought, well, first of all, they said, oh, we maybe need, I said to them, I think we need, some kind of system where you can choose which ones get published, because people are just going to swear. And, if we did this in Manchester, it just would be like full of swearing, right? And the day, so I built this system, and the day before they said, oh, we don't want to do that. Just let it all go live. I was like, well, I admire your optimism in the human character. So we put it all live, and the stories were amazing. Because I thought people would just go, either swear or just go, I've just had a nice coffee. It's like, no, these were like really long stories that went on. And they were all done via text message, so the barrier for tech was like really low. Lots of people know how to use text. And they sent all these images in, stories in, and we were just overwhelmed with them. They couldn't believe the quality of them. So that, again, creating environments for others to play within. If I hold back my English cynicism and give this to people and see what they will do with it, they surprised me, and I was like humbled, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. Or maybe Americans are just more medicated, I don't know. But they're just happier. And this is Christian from Airbnb, who's very, very happy. He's got his espresso, his pants are too short, so it's super cool, but yeah, he was such a lovely guy, and they loved it, and everyone reacted to it in a really lovely way. So, within that project, I was, doing things that I didn't know how to do. I don't want to do things that I know how to do because it's a bit boring for me. I want to constantly learn new things. But sometimes you end up doing the things you do know how to do because it's easier and there's comfort. The problem with comfort you get complacent. Comfort breeds complacency. So back in the end of 2018, I was asked to do a data collecting, data viz work for this company in the UK. They were a shoe company. And we went on a photo shoot, and my job was to collect data when this photo shoot was happening, and then I'd combine the data with the photo shoot for a big advertising campaign. And I built a little machine that collected the wind data, the temperature. It was all battery run. It didn't need the internet because there was a shoot in London, and then we'd do this shoot on a mountain in Yorkshire. I don't own any outdoor clothing. So, why would I? So I'm like there, and they're going, who's this guy that's like not dressed for being in a mountain? It's like, yeah, so I'm doing all this stuff. And then, so I get all this data, and I do all these little iterations and experiments, and it all gets signed off by the client. And then a few weeks before, and it's all signed off, and then they turn around and say, oh, that thing, we now hate it. I was like, great. So I then had to take that stuff, and they said, look, all we want is like a bar graph thing. I was like, really? I was like, yeah. So I made this interface in processing, and where you could bring in the photograph and the data that was collected at the time, and I could play around with how this data looks, and, I just made this thing, and it was fine. And I think some of the team had already resigned from the project because they'd just had enough. So I did this thing, and then we overlaid it over. This guy was amazing. He was like a parkour guy, and he would do flips off walls and amazing. So this is the exact, all the data. We had data collectors in his shoes. Forgot to mention that bit. So his shoes gave the data to me, and so I used that in that image. So that is the exact moment he's touching that wall, right? Which is fine, but I was like, God, I'm bored. This is depressing. is this it? Is this where I've got to with my career? It's like making fancy bar charts for one, over photographs. So it is. But so I thought, no, I need to reset. So a lot of my peers were using this thing called Houdini. So this was at the end of 2018. So I thought, I'm going to get into Houdini over the Christmas period. So that's what I did. And when you get into Houdini, the first thing you do is usually things like this. And there's lots of resources online. So Houdini is this thing that's existed for years, used in the CGI industry, film industry. But for me as a coder, you can also code with it and combine, really high quality executional detail with code. So I started to, and it was also procedural. And many years ago, I used to use Max MSP, which was like a node-based thing. So I just totally got it straight away. And you create what they call node graphs that look like this, that make things. And I just fell in love with it. And a lot of people, when they fire up Houdini, they like close it crying. It's like, I get that a lot. It's like, where did you start? It's like, you know what? Forget it's a 3D. I turned off all the 3D icons and I made it not look like a 3D piece of software. I made it look like this and code. And that kind of helped me. So everything was just node-based. I wasn't using a 3D interface at all. So I was teaching myself this over the Christmas period. And, you end up doing things like this. And then I got a call from an agency in Canada, actually. Wayne Gretzky. That's the only Canadian I know. Wayne Gretzky. I don't know what it means, but it's someone. I don't know. So anyway, I get this call, and it's to do a piece of work for Trend Micro, who are a huge cyber security company, probably the biggest, and they're commissioning 6 different artists to take their data, cybersecurity threat data, and make art with it. I was like, wow, this is a cool brief. And I thought, I'm going to use Houdini on it. I've never used Houdini properly commercially. I've been using it 3 weeks. So I said, yeah, this sounds great. So I then had to think about, well, what story am I trying to tell? So everything I do starts with, the simplicity of pencil and paper. And so I realized it was about 3 things. It was about the attacks that are trying to attack the network. It was the industry that was trying to be, protected. And also, why are you protecting it? Why are we doing that? It's so you can get on with your day and finish that PowerPoint presentation or be creative or whatever it is, right? So I wanted these 3 pillars to be represented in the data. And then I did lots of sketches like this and showed the client this. And then, so they didn't know that I'd never used Houdini before. They didn't really care. They wanted to just see cool shit. So I started to get the data from them. And I think there's 300,000 data points here. And this is not a data visualization. Who knows what this means? But I started to just throw, I'm nearly out of time. Seriously, wow. I'm going to have to go in the Q&A. So I would throw this stuff in here and we would, talk. I said, look, this is your data, but it looks sexy, right? And they were like, yeah, it does. And we're not talking colors at this point. So then what I realized was to really have a nice little part of it, I thought I could take the different industry verticals and I could use a security algorithm called an MD5 hash, take that word, gives me that string at the end, and then I can cut it up into different numbers. And numbers are good because I can use numbers in my code. So then I started to make these meshes that were based off those industry verticals. And obviously you can't tell that's banking. I'm an artist, I can do shit like this, so who cares, right? So I just make abstract weird things. And then it was like, well, then I've got to animate it. So we did that. And then what does the attacks on the network look like? So I did this animation. And I said to them on the call, by the way, they look too friendly, the attacks. They look like the kind of people you would go out on a great night out with. They need to, and they were like, yeah, they've got like the disco pants on. So I needed to make them look evil. I'm just going to click through it. So I combine these different routes, right, to create this scary thing. And then, so I ended up with these images. So this is all from data. And then I did an animation. It was all leading to a 4K animation, which I'm going to show you now. And then I did a storyboard, of course, to tell them what the animation was going to be. But here it is. So this is the attacks on the network, all from data. This is a spreadsheet. And then, even though the network has been attacked, creativity can still flow because Trend Micro have protected your system. So this was the first thing I ever made in Houdini. It's been downhill ever since, really, to be honest. But so yeah, I'll move it on. But so very quickly, I've still got a few minutes. I think maybe. Leave space in your work for the unexpected to grow. I was never a big collaborator, and then COVID hit. And I started to get these messages on Instagram and stuff like that. And I had an opportunity to do an auction with Sotheby's, and I came up with this idea of doing something called the Pandora Variations, which was my idea, my reaction to COVID. Because the Pandora myth, what people forget is, after all the evils of the world were released from the jar, at the bottom was hope. So I wanted to do this. I thought it was a great narrative for what happened with the pandemic. So someone called Logan Nelson, who is an amazing film composer, he got in touch to write the music, and he had a friend who is a former royal principal dancer at the Royal Ballet, and she would send me these sketches from Logan's music. And there was one called Jealousy, another one called Turmoil, Hatred, Hope, and another one which can't quite remember what it was. But so she would send me this, and then what I would do is take that and put it into Houdini and create something that, for me, communicated jealousy. So you're being held back. So this was auctioned at Sotheby's as a 5-piece work. And just very quickly, it's nice when you see there was no mocap, it was all AI to capture movements, which then I took into Houdini, and it's quite nice when you see the two side by side. So very simple, there was no mocap involved. It was, we just thought, let's do it down and dirty, right? So I'm going to just finish with, I won't show you these pieces, but there's some music-related things. I'm going to leave you with this. So I'm a big Virginia Woolf fan. I'm not going to read, obviously, all that out, but I love the essence of what this quote is. So I hope you all continue to fling out the wildest nonsense, follow the fantastic fancies without caring what the world does or thinks or says, for nothing matters except life. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful.
Have we got time?
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes, I think, yeah. Get those questions in if you'd like, fitc.ca/questions, and it's the last talk of the first day. So I have some questions. Let's see. So first of all, I do want to come back to this idea. You said at the end you don't typically collaborate. I want to come back to that. But you've worked with a lot of clients. What makes a good client, and then we can maybe say what makes a bad client. You can start with either one.
Well, a good client is someone who's is pretty brave in, because often they're taking a risk. If they've not worked with some, creative before, they're taking a kind of giant risk where the only thing that happened, I could not be paid, but they could be fired. Their career could go down the tubes, right? So they've got to be brave, and they've got to want to make the best work they can. They don't want to, be box tickers, because I wouldn't work with people like that. So, the worst client is when I did work. Luckily, all my clients have been great, but there was one in particular where there was another person involved, not to the level of like Emily's,
the Warner Music thing,
which is crazy, but there was someone above who was just like so stringent on what they wanted.
Yeah.
It was like, well, just employ someone to code it. Why have you got me to do it? So it's about, like anything, it's about relationships, isn't it? And making sure that it's a symbiotic relationship.
Well, with that shipping example, though, when you sent the thing ships can't do, were you a little bit disappointed? Were you kind of like, God damn it, like, I want you to be a better client than that?
No, I love the fact that they embraced it.
Okay.
I thought it was a lovely image.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so I really liked it. So I'm really glad it got used.
Did you have to then educate them and say, well, I want to go further with this, and let me tell you why? They were along for the ride still after that? Or were they kind of curious, like, why are we still going?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They were along for the ride.
Okay.
I think they loved the fact that I'd done it, rather than just be very scientific about it.
Yeah.
I'd gone off on one and done this thing that couldn't exist.
Yeah.
But the final thing was, more scientific than that.
Yeah.
But for the invite, it was kind of like a layered thing. It's like, oh, this is an intriguing image. What is the final thing going to be? So I think that's always a nice approach to have this layered approach.
Yeah. So one of the items in your manifesto is to do things you don't know how to do, and you showed us that quite a bit, right? From the happiness printer to learning Houdini. I mean, if you've tried to learn, crack it open. Good luck. It's not, and the fact that do you ever start down that path and realize, oh God, I've bitten off way more than I can chew? And then do you kind of regret, maybe? I mean, because it has to be something.
Yeah, there's sometimes that happens sometimes when it's like a physical installation, and you go. I did this one once with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, big, huge company, and they asked me to create something, and they just wanted a print, and I said, not going to do that. Why don't we do this electronic LED wall of like 200 cubes that I'm going to have fabricated? And so I did it, but then I was going to install it with a friend of mine, and so we had to install it overnight. So it was like a 2-day overnight install. So when the building shut, we went in, and I had this like, powered screwdriver thing and drill. And so I thought, right, I'll mark it all up. We marked it on the wall. And I got my drill, and my fist went straight through the wall.
Oh, God.
Right? And I was like, shit. Right? So I'm like, what happens now? So we got in a taxi and got some better equipment. And we managed to do it, and we pulled it off.
Yeah.
But that was scary. And it was things like, after that, when I did big installs, I employed a team that did installs. So
okay, so you learned
things
a
like
lesson.
that.
Well, okay, but this is a good segue because I've struggled with this a bit myself. So you seem to be most comfortable working independently. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay, but in some cases, maybe this example, you realize, okay, I need to work with other people on certain teams and stuff. Do you think that right now, at least at this moment, I feel like in the early days, let's say, of graphic design, it was always about independent creators, the Paul Rands, and these people, and they worked with the massive teams, but it was about these. But now, I feel like there's actually a stigma against being independent. It's almost, I feel like everybody wants you to be fiercely collaborative, and if you say, no, I like to work alone, people are like, well, what's wrong with you? Are you seeing a therapist about that? That kind of thing. Do you relate to that? Like, do you feel that stigma? Is that just me? Am I projecting onto you?
Maybe. Tell me about your mother.
Yeah, let me get comfortable here.
No, I think, for a long time I wasn't a big collaborator because, I'm not really interested in collaborating with people who do similar stuff to me. So the collaborations that I do and continue to do are film directors, choreographers, musicians, who brings, they're in a different medium. As for the independent thing, for a long time I was creative director of a design agency where we had 30 people. But I left that in 2012 because I wanted my life to be simpler and not be called on holiday going, we've got a problem. You know, it's
yeah,
you know, so
yeah.
there's no, I can't have that anymore because there's no one there to call me.
Yeah.
So I like the simplicity of that. Now, if some people, I mean, let me tell you now, my phone is not ringing off the hook. I don't have clients anymore, but so it's kind of different.
Okay.
But my phone was never ringing off the hook. So, you know, sometimes I'd have months.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. You know,
Yeah.
and then you get an amazing, brilliant client like Trend Micro or whatever, and I ended up doing like 7 pieces of work for them.
Yeah. Feast and famine, though, a little bit.
Yeah. So sometimes, it can be scary. Where I think the longest thing I had like 3 months with no work.
Oh, God.
This was like a few years ago.
Sure, yeah.
Because people think, oh, you get to a certain level of success, and they don't call you because they think you're too busy. You know, it kind of works against you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I've not got a problem with being independent because that's, you know what it is. I want to touch the work. I want me to be in the work.
Yeah.
I don't want to ring someone up and go, can you make that? You know,
yeah.
it's fine if you do that, but for me personally,
That's why you learn to
I want to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, that's gonna wrap us up. I think, everybody, round of applause for Brendan. Yeah. So it's been an amazing day. This is a great end to the day. You know, we had Aaron Draplin this morning who showed us the positive ripple effects that design can have on the world. Jared Ficklin gave us a glimpse into the future and maybe how to navigate it, I hope. Emily Oberman showed us the ups and the downs of starting over and finding out what it is you love in design over and over again. Gene Kogan gave us an inspiring tour of artificial intelligence and then pointed us to a fascinating and decidedly weird future. Barney Steele reminded us that language is not reality, relationships are reality, and art can help us transcend our usually limited perception of reality. And then John Björkberbesh ushered us through the doors of the metaverse and helped us explore the boundaries of the digital and physical. And lastly, Brendan's Manifesto showed us the power of stepping into the unknown and combining components to create unexpected things that are much greater than just the simple sum of those parts. So, was that fair? Yeah, all right. Hey, I just wrote that over there. Oh, yeah, man. I'm available for hire. So we've right. Dude, come on, man. You can give it away. This has been amazing. So you know the thing happening downstairs, right? That's going to be happening right after this, the mixer. I do want to thank once more our sponsors because they really do make this all happen. Adobe, Imagix, Loblaw Design, DYAN, Porter, Quantius, Seneca College, Stash Media, Startwell, Humber College, The Combine, Jam 3, City of Toronto, Friends and Enemies, Odd B, and Rodeo Effects. Thank you all to them. We are going to be back tomorrow with the first presentation starting at 9:35 a.m. And go on downstairs now and use those drink tickets that I know you got from all the exhibitors in the conversation room. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Bye.